The story begins in a quiet countryside mansion where luxury didn't bring peace, only silence. The air smelled of old money and secrets, and inside those walls lived a boy who learned early that love had a price. His name was Ethan Ward, the only son of the Ward family, a dynasty known for wealth, reputation, and cruelty disguised as tradition. When Ethan was 10, his parents hired a young maid named Maria. She was barely 16, her hands rough from farm work, her eyes soft and unbroken. She came from a nearby village, carrying nothing but a worn dress and a necklace made from thread and beads. But she brought something the mansion had never known: warmth. She sang while sweeping the halls, whispered kind words to the kitchen staff, and treated Ethan like a child, not a trophy. Every evening, when the boy's parents left for their endless dinners and business meetings, Maria would read him stories by the fire. She didn't know how to read perfectly, but Ethan didn't care. Her voice was calm, her laughter sincere. In her he found a mother, a sister, and a friend. In him she found someone who listened, something her own world had taken from her. But in that house, kindness was weakness, and weakness had consequences. One winter night, Mrs. Ward walked in unexpectedly and saw Maria sitting beside Ethan, holding his hand as she comforted him from a nightmare. The mother's face froze, not with shock but with disgust. "A servant touching my son?" she whispered, her tone venomous. The next morning Maria was gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just an empty room, and the faint smell of lavender where her pillow used to be. Ethan searched every corner of the mansion, shouting her name until his voice broke. When his father found him crying, he slapped the boy so hard he fell to the marble floor. "You will forget that girl," he said coldly. "She was sold to a family where she belongs." Ethan didn't understand what that meant. Sold. But those words branded his heart forever. Years passed, and Ethan grew into the perfect heir. He wore tailored suits, learned to lie with charm, and smiled at parties filled with people who wanted his name, not his soul. Yet deep inside, the echo of Maria's laughter never faded. He tried to drown it with luxury, cars, women, travel. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her standing in that old hallway, holding his hand, promising that he would never be alone. If you've ever felt that someone disappeared from your life without reason, someone who shaped who you are, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Let's see how many of us still remember the ones who made us believe in kindness. Now fate loves cruel symmetry. 15 years later, Ethan's parents hosted a charity gala at their new mansion in the city. The event sparkled with crystal lights and fake smiles. Reporters crowded the entrance, whispering about the Ward family's latest donation, not out of generosity, but guilt disguised as generosity. Ethan, now 25, had become the family's golden mask, the face they showed the world to prove they still had a heart. That night, while crossing the grand hall, Ethan noticed a figure serving wine near the balcony. The woman moved slowly, as if trying not to be seen. Her uniform was worn, her hands trembling slightly as she balanced a tray. For a moment, Ethan thought his mind was playing tricks on him. But when she turned, the room fell away. It was Maria, older, thinner. But her eyes, those same eyes that once read him stories, hadn't changed. They still carried warmth, though now buried under exhaustion and fear. Ethan froze. His breath caught. The sound of laughter, glasses clinking, the orchestra, everything faded. All that existed was her. He whispered her name, barely audible. She looked up startled, and their eyes met. Recognition struck them both like lightning. For a split second, time folded. The boy and the maid, the past and the present colliding in silence. But before Ethan could move, Maria turned away and vanished into the crowd of servants. He searched the entire night, pretending to greet guests while scanning every corner of the ballroom. When the gala ended, he slipped into the servants' quarters, where the noise was replaced by whispers. One woman told him Maria was hired temporarily through an agency, desperate for work after losing her husband. Ethan's chest tightened. So much pain behind that quiet face. The next day, he went to the agency under a fake name. Money spoke louder than truth. Within an hour, he had her address. It led to a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, a single room with peeling paint, flickering lights, and the faint smell of cheap soap. He waited outside, unsure what he would say. When Maria appeared carrying groceries, Ethan's world stopped again. She looked shocked, then terrified. "Why are you here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "To bring you back," he said simply. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "You can't. I'm not that girl anymore. And you're not that boy." But Ethan stepped closer. "Then let me meet the woman you became." She wanted to believe him. God, she did. But reality had taught her that people like him didn't rescue people like her. Yet his eyes were not the eyes of his parents. They were filled with something purer, remorse, longing, and love that had never died. That night Maria didn't let him inside. But when he left, she watched from the window until his car disappeared. For the first time in years, she smiled. The next days became a rhythm of memories and hesitation. Ethan kept coming back, bringing food, fixing her broken door, leaving flowers without saying a word. Slowly the walls she'd built began to crack. One evening, when the rain flooded the street, he stayed outside under an umbrella for hours, waiting for her to open the door. When she finally did, soaked and speechless, he stepped inside, and the years between them vanished. They talked until dawn, about the past, the pain, and the people who broke them. Maria told him she'd been sold to a wealthy family who treated her like property. She'd escaped years later, working in silence to survive. Ethan's hands shook as he listened. He realized his parents hadn't just ruined her childhood. They destroyed her future. He swore that night to make it right. But love, in their world, was never free. The morning after that promise, Ethan stood at his office window, watching the city move beneath him. Cars looked like insects, people like shadows, all chasing something they'd never catch. He realized that he had spent years becoming one of them, living under his parents' expectations, silencing his own heart. But last night had changed everything. For the first time, he felt alive. He picked up the phone and called his assistant. "Find every document related to the Ward estate, and get me the contact information for our legal department." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, may I ask why?" Ethan's voice hardened. "Because I'm done letting other people decide who deserves happiness." That afternoon, he visited Maria again. She was sewing near the window when he knocked. Her face lit up, not with surprise, but with the quiet acceptance that he was there again. He placed a small envelope on her table. Inside was a letter of employment, written in her name, granting her a position not as a maid, but as a caretaker for one of his new charity foundations. Maria stared at the papers, confused. "You did this for me?" Ethan nodded. "No, I did it for us. You once gave me hope when I had nothing. Let me return it." Her hands trembled as she held the papers. It wasn't about the job. It was the dignity it restored. The world had taken everything from her, but in that moment she saw herself again through his eyes, not as a servant, but as a person worth saving. For weeks they worked together quietly. Maria managed small community projects. Ethan funded them discreetly. Rumors began to spread through the ward circle, whispers about the young heir spending time in the poor districts, about a woman who had bewitched him. His parents soon found out. Mrs. Ward arrived unannounced at his office, her perfume filling the air before her words even landed. "I hear you've been keeping a charity worker close," she said sharply. "Is this your new hobby, saving the help?" Ethan didn't look up. "She's not the help." She's Maria, the name made his mother flinch. For a second, her mask cracked, then returned sharper. You're playing with fire, Ethan. That girl was trouble then, and she's trouble now. Do you know what she cost us when you were a child? He looked her in the eyes for the first time in years. No, Mother. What you cost her. That night the mansion trembled with arguments. His father, cold and strategic, demanded obedience. You will end this nonsense immediately. That woman is beneath you. She was bought and sold. That's all she'll ever be. Ethan's chest burned with fury. She was sold because of you, he shouted. You ruined her life, and now you want me to pretend she never existed. His father's hand struck the desk, scattering papers. Do not forget who you are. Ethan stood taller. For the first time, I remember exactly who I am. He walked out, leaving his father speechless, something that had never happened before. Outside, rain poured like a confession from the sky. Ethan drove straight to Maria's apartment, soaked to the bone, but unable to stop shaking, not from the cold, but from rage and fear. When she opened the door, he fell into her arms. She didn't ask what happened. She just held him, like she used to when he was 10. I told them, he whispered. I told them I won't lose you again. Maria's voice broke as she answered, They won't let this go, Ethan. He nodded. Then we'll leave before they can stop us. If you believe that love can defy the walls society builds, write I believe in second chances in the comments. And tell me, where are you watching from right now? Let's see how many of us still believe love can rewrite destiny. Days later, Ethan sold his shares of the family business. Quietly, strategically. He withdrew enough money to start a new life far from his parents' reach. But news travels faster than love. Mrs. Ward confronted him in public, surrounded by reporters, pretending to plead for her son's sanity. She claimed Maria was manipulating him, using his guilt to destroy the family. Maria watched the footage on an old TV at the charity office. The words pierced her deeper than any insult. She knew how powerful the Wards were. They could turn angels into villains overnight. When Ethan arrived, she was packing her things. I can't let you lose everything because of me, she said. Your parents will never stop. He grabbed her hands. Then let them destroy me, but not us. Maria shook her head. You don't understand. They can make me disappear again. They've done it before. Her voice cracked, and the memories flooded back. The night she was dragged away, the carriage ride through the storm, the strange house where she worked for strangers who locked her in rooms when she spoke out of turn. She had survived hell once. She wouldn't go back. Ethan cupped her face. I swear on everything I have, they'll never touch you again. He meant it. 2 days later, he transferred every cent he owned into a trust under Maria's name. She refused, crying that it was too much, that he was ruining himself. But Ethan smiled. You once saved me without asking for anything. Let me finally do something that matters. The following morning, they boarded a train heading south toward the countryside where everything began. Maria sat by the window, watching the city fade behind smoke and rain. For the first time in years, she wasn't running. She was returning. Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand gently as if afraid she'd vanish again. When they arrived, the old Ward mansion still stood like a ghost, abandoned, covered in ivy, yet unbroken. Ethan walked through its hall silently. Dust danced in the sunlight, and somewhere between the echoes of the past, he felt the weight of his family's sins. This is where they took everything from you, he whispered. And this is where I'll give it back. Maria touched the cracked walls, her eyes wet but strong. You can't buy forgiveness, Ethan, he nodded. I'm not trying to buy it. I'm trying to rebuild it. They spent the night in that old house, not as master and servant, not as victim and heir, but as two souls who refused to be defined by the past. Yet the world doesn't forgive love that crosses the wrong lines. The next morning, a convoy of black cars appeared at the gates. The engines hummed like thunder as the black cars stopped in front of the old mansion. Dust rose from the gravel path, drifting through the morning light. Ethan stood by the window, his shirt unbuttoned, his eyes sharp with resolve. Maria's fingers tightened around the teacup she was holding. She didn't need to ask who it was. She already knew. He turned toward her. "Stay here," he whispered. Maria shook her head. "No, I ran once. I won't hide again." Ethan smiled sadly. "That's what I love about you." Outside, his parents emerged, Mrs. Ward perfectly composed, her pearl necklace gleaming under the pale sun. Mr. Ward followed, flanked by 2 lawyers and a security driver. They walked through the iron gates as if still owning everything they touched. "Ethan," his father began, his tone calm and poisonous, "you've made quite the spectacle. Reporters have been calling all morning. You're ruining our name." Ethan stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "Then it's time that name stands for something worth remembering." Mrs. Ward's eyes flicked to Maria, who stood beside him with quiet strength. "You brought her here? To this house?" she said, trembling with controlled fury. "After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us?" Ethan's laugh was bitter. "You didn't raise me, Mother. Maria did. You bought silence, not family." For a moment, even the wind seemed to stop. Mr. Ward spoke next, his words measured like a verdict. "That girl has no place in our bloodline. If you stay with her, you'll lose everything. The company, the estate, the inheritance. Everything we built for you." Ethan took Maria's hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "Then I lose nothing that matters." Mrs. Ward's lips quivered. "You're throwing your life away for a servant." Maria looked down, her heart racing. But before Ethan could speak, she stepped forward. Her voice was calm, fragile, yet unshakable. "I was a servant, yes, but I served your home with love, even when you treated me as invisible. I never wanted his fortune. I just wanted peace." Her words hit deeper than any insult could. Mrs. Ward's mask faltered. For the first time, guilt cracked through her perfection, but Mr. Ward's fury rose. "Enough! Get in the car, Ethan. This nonsense ends now." Ethan stared at him, silent. Then he walked past both parents and stopped near the iron gate. "You can take your cars, your name, your empire," he said, his tone like glass, cold and cutting. "But you'll never own me again." He turned to Maria. "Come with me." They left the mansion through the back path, where the overgrown garden had swallowed the old stone benches. The morning light broke through the trees, painting them gold, as they walked away from the ghosts. Behind them, Mrs. Ward's voice echoed faintly, not in anger, but in despair. "Ethan, please." He stopped for a second, but didn't turn around. Some love was too broken to repair. They moved to a small coastal town by the sea, far from the noise of their former lives. Ethan sold what remained of his inheritance and opened a modest workshop, fixing boats and helping local fishermen. Maria started a school for village children, teaching them to read, something she once struggled to do herself. The town grew to love them, not for who they were, but for what they gave. For a time, peace returned, but peace, for people like them, was always temporary. Months later, a letter arrived, sealed with the Ward family crest. Ethan stared at it for hours before opening it. Inside was a single line, written in his father's sharp handwriting. "Your mother is ill. Come home before it's too late." Maria saw the pain in his eyes. She wanted to tell him not to go, to protect the fragile life they had built. But she also knew that forgiveness was a wound that refused to heal until faced. "I'll go with you," she said softly. Ethan nodded. When they returned to the city, the mansion was quieter than he remembered. Curtains drawn, lights dim, and the scent of medicine lingering in the air. Mrs. Ward lay in bed, her once glorious presence reduced to a fragile shadow. When she saw Ethan, tears welled up instantly. "You really came," she whispered. He sat beside her. "Of course I did." Her hand trembled as she reached for his. "I was wrong," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting myself. I couldn't bear the thought of you loving someone who reminded me of how cruel I became." Ethan held her hand tighter. "It's not too late, Mother." Her gaze shifted to Maria, who stood quietly by the door. You never stopped loving him, did you?" Maria's eyes glistened. "Never." Mrs. Ward's lips quivered into a faint smile. "Then promise me one thing. Take care of each other. Don't become like us." Those were her last words. The funeral was simple, elegant, and empty of sincerity, except for Ethan and Maria. She stood beside him as the rain fell, her umbrella tilted over his shoulder. No reporters, no cameras, just silence and closure. After the service, Ethan's father approached one last time. The old man looked smaller, worn, his power fading with every breath. "She wanted me to give you this," he said, handing Ethan a sealed envelope. Inside was a deed, the legal transfer of the old Ward mansion to Ethan's name. Ethan stared at the paper. "I don't want it," Mr. Ward nodded. "I know, but maybe she wanted you to give it a soul again, for the first time." The man's voice softened, not as a businessman, but as a father who'd finally understood too late. Years later, the mansion no longer stood in silence. Its gates were open again, welcoming children from Maria's school, families in need, and travelers looking for shelter. The same walls that once echoed with cruelty now echoed with laughter. Ethan and Maria never married in a grand ceremony. There were no diamonds, no headlines. One morning, under the same tree where she once read him stories, they exchanged vows written on scraps of paper. "I don't need forever," Maria said. "I just need enough time to love you right," Ethan smiled. "Then let's make every moment count." They kissed under the golden sunrise, the ghosts of their past finally quiet. If this story touched you, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Let's see how many hearts across the world still believe that love can break chains, rewrite destiny, and turn pain into legacy. Because sometimes, the ones the world breaks the most are the ones who rebuild it with love.